Hey everyone, today we're diving into a process that's happening all around us, every single second. It's one of nature's greatest magic tricks, really. We're going to explore the incredible story of how plants, well, how they eat sunlight. I mean, it kind of sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? Plants don't have mouths. They can't just chomp down on a sunbeam. So how in the world do they consume the energy that powers their growth and, in turn, powers pretty much everything else on this planet? Well, the answer is a process called photosynthesis. And look, this isn't just some neat biological trick. This is the foundational chemical reaction that completely transformed our planet and made complex life, like us, even possible. So, to really get this, let's start with the big picture. Let's look at photosynthesis as the entire planet's green engine. At its core, it's basically a recipe. And the ingredients? They're super simple. The carbon dioxide we breathe out, water from the ground, and of course, energy from sunlight. The plant takes all of these and cooks them up to create two things that are absolutely vital: carbohydrates, which is just a fancy word for sugar that the plant uses as food, and the oxygen we're all breathing right now. And get this process is ancient. It first showed up around 3.5 billion years ago in really simple single-celled organisms. But the real game changer came about a billion years later, when this process started pumping out oxygen as a waste product. Over millions and millions of years, this literally changed our entire atmosphere. And eventually, more complex life, eukaryotes, which includes plants and us, came along and built upon those ancient foundations. Okay, so we've seen the global scale. Now let's zoom in, way in, right down to the cellular level, and take a tour of the microscopic factory where all of this magic actually happens. Welcome to the chloroplast. If you think of a plant cell as a bustling city, then the chloroplasts are its power plants and its food production factories, all rolled into one amazing little package. This is where sunlight gets turned into actual solid matter. So inside our little factory, there are two main departments. First up, you've got the thylakoids. The best way to think of these is as huge arrays of solar panels, all stacked up to capture as much light as they possibly can. Then you have the stroma. This is the fluid-filled space all around them. You can think of it as the main factory floor, where the final product gets put together. The whole operation is split into two main shifts. The first shift is called the light-dependent reactions. This happens in those solar panels, the thylakoids, and its whole goal is just to generate energy. The second shift is the Calvin cycle. This takes place out on the factory floor, the stroma, and its goal is to use all that energy to build sugar. Let's check out that first shift. This brings us to the first stage, the light reactions. Think of this as the factory's power grid, the part where raw sunlight gets converted into a form of chemical energy that the factory can actually use. The goal here is simple, but it's also profound. It's to capture light energy and store it in tiny, portable, rechargeable chemical batteries. These batteries are then going to power the whole second half of the process. So how does it do it? Well, it happens in 4 key steps. First, that green pigment we all know, chlorophyll, grabs photons of light. This gets electrons all excited, and that kicks off a chain reaction. Second, these energized electrons flow down what's basically an assembly line, called an electron transport chain. Third, that flow pumps protons across a membrane, creating an energy gradient, kind of like water building up behind a dam. And finally, all that stored energy is used to charge up 2 special little molecules, our batteries, called ATP and NADPH. And this diagram gives us a really cool look at the machinery that's actually embedded in that thylakoid membrane. These big complexes you see here, those are photosystem 2 and photosystem 1. They're the ones grabbing the light. And this chain connecting them, that's the electron transport chain. All of this hardware works in perfect concert to generate power for the plant. And here they are. These are the batteries we've been talking about, ATP and NADPH. You can think of them as the universal energy currencies for the cell. Right now, they are fully charged up and ready to be shipped from the solar panels over to the main assembly line. Which brings us to part 2, the assembly line itself. This is where the actual food, the sugar, gets built from scratch. The power grid has done its job. The batteries are delivered to the factory floor, the stroma, and now the real construction can begin. And here's a crucial point. This stage doesn't use sunlight directly, but it absolutely 100% depends on the energy that was captured from light a moment before. So, out on that factory floor, the Calvin cycle gets to work. It cashes in those ATP and NADP batteries for power. It pulls in its raw material, carbon dioxide, right out of the air, And through this incredible series of chemical reactions, it starts snapping those carbon atoms together to build stable, energy-rich carbohydrates. In other words, it makes food. So that's the assembly line. Now that we understand how the factory works, let's zoom all the way back out and look at what this all means for us. And, well, for the entire planet. I mean, this single sentence says it all, doesn't it? This one process happening in trillions upon trillions of tiny organisms over billions of years completely re-engineered planet Earth's atmosphere. It literally created the air that all complex life needs to survive. So, why does this tiny factory matter? It boils down to two very simple, very personal reasons. First, the oxygen you are breathing right now is a waste product from this process. And second, whether you're eating a salad or a burger or a piece of bread, the energy in that food ultimately came from the sun, captured and turned into sugar inside one of these tiny chloroplast factories. So in the end, photosynthesis took the most abundant energy source we have, sunlight, and used it to create food and fuel, changing an entire world in the process. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we look to our own future, what elegant world-changing factories will we design to power our planet?